What if every country woke up in another body? The world changes. Overnight, no one voted, no one prepared. But when the sun rises, every nation has swapped places. The United States wakes up in the body of North Korea, locked borders, iron grip, and no allies. Meanwhile, North Korea is now in control of the American dream. China finds itself surrounded by glaciers in Greenland, far from its factories and trade routes. And Greenland, it inherits the dragon's fire and population. Brazil is now trapped inside the harsh Siberian winter, while Russia sweats in the Amazon rainforest, choking on humidity and unfamiliar threats. Switzerland awakens in the heart of the Congo jungle. No banks, no Alps, no neutrality. Chaos replaces precision, and the Congo now sits in Central Europe. It inherits snowy peaks, Swiss passports, and global trust. Borders mean nothing. Resources are useless if the minds managing them are suddenly foreign. Culture, out of sync with geography. India stares at fjords. Norway tries to manage Mumbai. The planet spins, but nothing feels familiar anymore. Each government holds the same mind, but now rules in an alien body, and the rules of survival completely rewritten. Germany finds itself in the scorching deserts of Chad, while Chad steps into German engineering and cold winters. Economic power shifts overnight. Tech hubs collapse. Oil-rich nations dry up. Shipping routes become useless. Oceans once controlled by navies are now patrolled by nations with no fleets, and the former superpowers, stripped of leverage. Japan now lies deep in the African Sahel, landlocked, with no seas to master, while Niger inherits cutting-edge robotics and bullet trains. Australia is now in the Arctic, its sunny beaches replaced by frozen tundra and endless night. Mexico now sits where Sweden used to be, wealthy, cold, and in charge of the EU's doorstep. Sweden adapts to Latin heat and vibrant noise. Borders clash with identity. Religions misalign with local customs. Revolts spark from confusion, not anger. The United Kingdom now governs from the heart of the Sahara, while Mali inherits the Isles and Parliament. Military strength dissolves without terrain knowledge. Soldiers are armed but misplaced. Maps are useless. Food production collapses. Egypt now sits in icy Canada, struggling to grow crops in frozen fields. Canada now rules the Nile, overflowing with water, but not policies to handle heat. The climate crushes the weak, but opportunity rises for the bold. Singapore is now deep in the Amazon, small, precise, and efficient, now forced to survive among an ecosystem that swallows cities whole. The Amazon becomes the new Silicon Valley. But can it handle fiber optics through vines? Israel wakes up on the Korean peninsula, surrounded by giants and history. South Korea finds itself in the Middle East. New tensions, new neighbors. Diplomats scramble, alliances crack. Treaties are now comedies. Language becomes irrelevant. Culture turns into a costume. Governments try to enforce laws in places they barely understand. The UN calls for calm, but who listens? It's hard to negotiate when your embassy is now underwater. The Vatican finds itself in Siberia. The Pope now speaks to nomads and wolves. Saudi Arabia sits in Iceland. Oil fields gone. But geothermal energy, a blessing in disguise. The New World doesn't punish the powerful. It simply equalizes everyone. Brutally. Africa now dominates Europe. But with that power comes winter, supply chains, and expectations. France is now in the Himalayas. Isolated. Nepal rules Paris cafes. Global brands collapse overnight. Factories are in places that don't want them. Logos lose meaning. McDonald's tries to reopen in Bhutan. But there are no potatoes, no roads, no appetite for Big Macs. Some adapt, others break. Cuba, now in New Zealand, thrives with new seas and trade. New Zealand, stuck in Cuba's place, loses its calm but gains revolution. Time zones twist logic. Sunrise comes at midnight. Clocks lie. People disorient. Tourism dies. What's the point of visiting Italy when it's now in the Gobi Desert? Italy, surrounded by dunes, tries to rebuild the Colosseum out of sand. China, now in the Arctic, struggles to feed 1.4 billion people. With snow, nations beg to return. But who would give up paradise for problems? Swaps weren't equal. Some countries won the lottery. Others barely survived. Geography was destiny. Now it's just chaos. Strategic depth becomes a myth. Borders are redrawn, not by war, but by madness. No one knows who belongs where. Old enemies share bunkers. Old allies stare across oceans. The new map doesn't care about history. It only respects adaptation. Some nations rise because they learn. Others fall because they wait. The human mind adapts quickly. But identity? It bleeds slowly. Religions shift. Meccas move. Temples freeze. Faith is tested by altitude and heat. Languages become relics. Culture gets downloaded, not inherited. World leaders broadcast hope, but their people want answers and heat. The global economy resets. Bitcoin soars. Gold plummets. Grain becomes king. Education collapses. What use is geography class when the world map is fiction? Kids grow up believing their flag belongs to a desert, but they see snow outside their window. And still, humanity fights to make sense of it all, to plant new roots in foreign soil. Wars are rare, because no one's sure who they're fighting for anymore. The new power is adaptation, and the new enemy, nostalgia. A decade later, the world has changed. Not better, not worse, just different. And in that difference, a strange peace emerges, not of borders, but of understanding. Because maybe, just maybe, the planet didn't reshuffle by accident. Maybe it was a test.